to entertain you. We'll sing your song.
Hey there. Are you obsessed with things that happened before your time? Well, if you are, join me, the host of Before My Time, Kelsey Laurie, to discuss the wonders of the yesteryears that we weren't around to enjoy ourselves. You can find us on all podcast platforms.
Soon you'll be swaying, so come on, sing along.
Put down that smartphone and listen to me. I'm Matthew Milligan, professional musician and lifelong Weird Al fan. Each week, I'm joined by professional podcaster and close personal friend Matt Kelly to take a dive off the deep end into the vast career of pop culture icon Weird Al Yankovic on our show, Weird Algorithm. Along with some very special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we tackle every song, every television appearance, and every bit of sketch comedy Al has produced in chronological order, covering the good old days of My Bologna and Eat It, the fun zone of tacky and white and nerdy, and everything in between. As we go, we're ranking the songs, albums, and music videos in the hopes of creating the ultimate guide to a career bigger than the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. So the next time you're having one of those days, stuck in a traffic jam, wondering why does this always happen to me, just kick off your sneakers and stick around for a while because we've got it all on Weird Algorithm, available wherever you get your podcasts. And now you know. Was that enough references?
We're here to entertain you. We'll sing your song.
Hey there. Are you obsessed with things that happened before your time? Well, if you are, join me, the host of Before My Time, Kelsey Laurie, to discuss the wonders of the yesteryears that we weren't around to enjoy ourselves. You can find us on all podcast platforms.
Soon you'll be swaying, so come on, sing along.
Hey guys, it's Matt. A couple weeks ago, I was on the Christmas Aficionado podcast. The topic was that I was there to talk about TV shows that never got a Christmas episode, but should have. And we had to not only talk about those shows, but talk about what we would have done as a Christmas episode. It was a ton of fun. And in case you guys missed it, I wanted to share it here as a little bonus episode this holiday season. So enjoy and then go subscribe to the Christmas Aficionado podcast. You can go to the website, christmasaficionado.com, to find all the ways that you can support Joe with his podcasting. I plan to go back on Christmas Aficionado one of these days as well. It was a ton of fun, so I hope you all enjoy it.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Christmas Aficionados, the Christmas Summit podcast. The Christmas episode of a TV series is one of my favorite episodes to watch every year. Sitcoms love to have a special Christmas episode where they were different from the rest of the series, let's be honest. Shows like The Office, Everybody Loves Raymond, and Home Improvement all had great Christmas episodes every season. But can you believe that some television shows never had a Christmas episode? That's right. So tonight, we're going to explore 9 television shows that never featured the cast during the holidays. Do they hate Christmas? Possibly. I invited 2 special guests who brought 3 TV shows they want to discuss, speculate what the Christmas episode could have been, and why they didn't have one. So I love to bring on my special guests of all podcasts that I listen to. Both of these guys put a lot of work into putting out Christmas content all year long, and as someone who does the same, let me tell you, it's tough to get people to pay attention to Christmas in May. So let me introduce you guys one at a time. So, making his second appearance on my channel is the man, the myth, newly married, and the host of the Behind the Bells podcast, Christmas expert Robert Nicholas. His podcast takes a deep dive into holiday classics and explores the impact they had on the season. Welcome back, Robert. You were the first ever guest I had, and we discussed the good parts of Santa Claus the movie. So the question is, can I still try and convince you that the McDonald's scene in all of its glory 80s goodness was a good part to that film?
Well, I still consider it a dated portion. I don't know if I can necessarily defend it as a good moment. It is memorable, though. I will admit that. I said so the last time as well.
Are you calling me old?
Well, you said it, not me.
I know. I am. So that's fine. So my next guest is Matt from the Christmas 365 podcast. Along with his co-host Dylan, the longtime friend, self-proclaimed nerd, discuss their favorite Christmas specials, movies, songs, albums, and just overall seasonal vibes. I originally invited Matt and Dylan to join, but sadly he could not join us tonight. And I think it's because of his opinion that Ben Affleck is the best Batman. I heard your episode of Batman Returns, and I can only imagine that every Generation X has canceled him. Matt, welcome to Christmas Summit Podcast.
Listen, I can't speak for the opinions of Dylan. He's young and inexperienced. That's all I can say.
Clearly, I mean, anybody that would say Michael Keaton is not the best Batman, he's lost.
There's one acceptable answer, and that's if you go with Adam West. I will accept Adam West over Michael Keaton, but it's a totally different Batman and a totally different vibe.
Well, you let him know that when he changes his opinion, we'll welcome him to the show.
I'll pass the message.
Okay, so welcome, gentlemen. Are you guys ready to discuss TV shows that never had a Christmas episode? Why don't you guys each tell me a little bit about your favorite shows and maybe the shows that you didn't include that were on this list before we get started? Robert? Or Matt? Whatever, who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll go ahead and go first. So, anyway, I was the kind of kid that, being that I essentially grew up in the late 80s through the mid 90s or so, which was sort of my peak, but I like to say my peak, like, childhood point. Essentially, everything I watched was either on Disney or Nickelodeon. So chances are, if it wasn't on either of those networks, I might have seen it, but maybe not. Now, what was hard about this sort of this kind of list here was that a good chunk of Nickelodeon and Disney Channel specials actually did get holiday episodes. Mm-hmm. Even though one of them I actually am going to be discussing, which happens to be one of the more popular ones that's also a favorite of mine, the original DuckTales.
That explains everything from your list. When I got it, I'm like, I don't think Robert ever watched anything but cartoons.
I also have a cartoon on mine though. So
yeah, no, I mean, there's no shame in it. I'm just was one. It was like, okay, well.
Well,
no
I think I told you earlier, Joe. Like most of my decision making was really a lot of like single season shows because the longer a show's on, the more inevitable that they will do a Christmas or holiday themed episode. My favorite show of all time is Scrubs, and Scrubs has like one or two absolute banger Christmas episodes. And I mean like ones that will get those tears going. I think for me, this was a little hard for me because I am not a person who cares that much about the Christmas episode of a show. For me, it's a lot more of those like one-off Christmas specials, right? Like the Muppets Family Christmas or like the Pee-wee Christmas special that kind of act as a completely separate one-off short film as opposed like hour-long film as opposed to like an episode kind of just like jammed in the middle of a season. So yeah, I had to like really think about like, all right, like, because then there's like, oh no, I think that there's weird ones, right? Like Seinfeld sort of has two Christmas episodes, but like, are they even really Christmas episodes, right? Like that's a Festivus episode. And the other one is like for 5 minutes, Kramer's a mall Santa. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're barely Christmas episodes. Same with Friends. Friends has like no Christmas episodes. Like,
it's kind of all the same. It's off to the side. It's not the focus of the episode, but it takes place during Christmas. And you know, in our world, we need as much content as we can of Christmas, so that counts.
It does. It does. I think the first time we did a Friends Christmas episode, halfway through watching it, I was like, this is actually, I think, a New Year's episode, actually, because it was way more about, like, there was Christmas decorations in the background, but the whole episode was about having someone to kiss on New Year's Eve. Yeah. Like, not a word of Christmas was mentioned for 20 minutes.
So my television history is that I pretty much grew up on TV. So I watched every sitcom that was out in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. I've watched it all. I love it all. I watched the Christmas episodes. I taped the Christmas episodes. So for me, the Christmas episode of a television show was always the greatest. And when it came down to it, I had to really think about, my list here. Like, what are the shows that don't have one? And then when I started coming up, I started putting together more and more of a list. I was like, holy crap, I'm missing out on these shows, missed out on such a great opportunity to do something fun. And I think that's what we're going to do today. So you guys each brought 3 episodes of TV, or three series. Tell me about what you think the episode would have been about when it's your turn. We'll speculate it. We'll talk about the show itself, and then, try to have some fun.
All right.
So, cool. So the first episode of the TV shows that never had a Christmas episode was, Robert, your first choice was DuckTales. The original, of course, not that remake that they did a few years ago.
DuckTales, woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yeah. So anyway, what's funny about the whole DuckTales thing not getting a Christmas episode was that a lot of the Disney afternoon cartoons really didn't get a lot of holiday specials. I know the Darkwing Duck got one. I'll have to cover that one at some point. But when I really thought about how DuckTales itself didn't really get one, essentially I was trying to think about how exactly a show that was essentially part globetrotting, part Indiana Jones, part Richie Rich, putting it all together into one story. What I came up with was more or less an idea about maybe Huey, Dewey, and Louie writing letters to Santa, even though they got a rich uncle, so they can pretty much get whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then only to get letters back, essentially charging for the toys that they want to bring, which confuses them. So they bring it to Scrooge, who notices that the handwriting on the letters sent back looks a little familiar. So he, Launchpad, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and Webby all decide to venture forth via plane to the North Pole. And, they do manage to find Santa's workshop, only to find no Santa, no elves. All they happen to find is Scrooge's competitor, Flimham Glomgold, who essentially has decided to, turn the North Pole into his own weird little enterprise, to which, Scrooge, luckily in this case, being I did not want to do another Christmas Carol scenario with him since it was already done better in Mickey's Christmas Carol, he already loves the holiday season and thus, wants to ensure that Santa's put back into position. And that's when they essentially have to go through the Arctic to find a gem of sorts hidden amongst the ice that would actually restore back some of the magic that Santa had managed to lose, all because Flimheart, Glomgold had actually just come up and done something of that. And that's what the episode would have been about. Them finding the gem, finding out how exactly it got, lost from the North Pole, and, saving Christmas.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think you're right. I mean, there's so many of those 80s cartoons that went to visit Santa at the North Pole. Like I could think of Heathcliff did, and then what's another one? It was on the tip of my tongue, but yeah, they would go up and visit Santa. Oh, Flintstones. Flintstones would always they did it twice the same episode. Shows my age.
It was
I'm sorry.
part of their cereal commercial.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I think the ironic thing though is it's Scrooge McDuck, and so the fact that they don't have a Christmas episode with Scrooge as the main character is kind of funny to me, because it's wouldn't he be do the Christmas Carol again, or do some version of it? They never did that.
I could even see an episode where you could do a Christmas episode where the Beagle Boys steal everybody's Christmas presents, and it's up for Scrooge to use his wealth to replenish the gifts, a la the Grinch or something. There's so many options of what to do with this. That's wild, because DuckTales ran longer than most animated shows of the 80s ran too. They had plenty of opportunity for Christmas episodes.
And being that it ran so long afterwards, as it was syndicated through the Disney Channel for years, that may have also been the reason why that show, amongst a lot of other animated shows, didn't get Christmas specials, because when you syndicate shows, you really don't have to put them in order. And thus, usually a syndicated show, well, anything that was syndicated, the networks hated if there was like a 1 or 2 or 3-parter in that aspect, because they had no choice but to put them together, because that's apparently too much work for them to put together 2 episodes. And I guess that might have been similar too for the holiday-based ones as well. Like, what? We got to time this to December? Oh, that's just too much work for us. Just put them in a random order and put them out.
I think there's a lot of those cartoons that would air like in September or October, their Christmas episode, because really, I don't think they cared. Like that. The more I think about it,
especially like until very recently.
Yeah,
until very, very recently, like production code didn't really matter. Like they were just filming 22 episode seasons that could theoretically be aired in any order, and it wasn't until in our very recent past that now like television, no matter what it is fairly serialized, and like you have to watch a show in a very specific order. I mean, I think we're going to get to one of my shows sooner or later on in this, but like Disney produced another show that ran for 2 seasons that really you cannot watch it out of order as an animated show. It's too confusing and complicated otherwise, and that's very, very new to television, and especially for animation, for something to be like
for
that.
a cartoon. Yeah, a kid trying to keep a kid's. Well, I guess kids will watch anything, but
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I think older kids or 40-some-year-old adults watching these cartoons now, we would probably go, "Hey, that doesn't make any sense." So
yeah,
yeah.
Okay,
even
cool.
The original, even the original DuckTales, though, I will say it still holds up pretty well over these years, and it's still a fun watch.
I when you guys sent me your episodes, I had to watch. This is one I had to rewatch. I hadn't watched DuckTales in a long time. I watched this when I was I guess I was a kid. Yeah, I was probably an older kid, but I did watch this, and I rewatched it just to kind of get a feel for it and stuff. And the episode I watched was great. I loved it. It was such a great show. And I never watched the remake. Did you guys watch the remake?
I actually okay, so this is very weird. I haven't talked to him in years, but I was friends with the person who created the remake.
Oh, really?
He took me to my first Weird Al concert when I lived in LA very briefly. And that was like before anything. He was just a struggling writer in LA. But I haven't talked to him since he's become a success. So I think he doesn't care about me one way or the other. But it was actually, it was pretty good. Like, I think that they got decent voice actors. It was obvious that they at least had some passion for the original show. Like, it wasn't like when you watch something like Riverdale where you're like, these people don't care about Archie comics at all. I think that there was at least a vibe of enjoying it, but it's, it's different. It's for a whole different generation of kids, ultimately, is what it all comes down to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
And I've actually seen a little bit of the new series, and it is pretty good. I think my only issue, though, is that I'm not necessarily a fan of the art style of it, which is definitely going for a more pulpy comic sort of vibe, which to me comes off as a little too flat.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's definitely more of a personal taste thing, because I know that there are people who love the new DuckTales, and again, I just kind of wish that the new show would have a at least more fluid style of animation that the old show had, and then I think he might have actually had a show that would have surpassed the old show for me. Even though, as much as I do love Matt Smith, he's just not going to beat out the original one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Alan Young. Yeah.
So, Matt, you chose Undeclared.
A show that lasted about 11 episodes on its initial run on television. Undeclared is one of my absolute favorite TV shows. It was written to be the sequel to Freaks and Geeks. Didn't end up that way, but when Freaks and Geeks got canceled, the story is that Judd Apatow was like, I really liked working with those kids. I'm going to write a new show, but it's going to take place in college, so it matches where their ages are now. And the studio loved the pilot, but hated the entire cast of Freaks and Geeks. So the only one that they signed off on was Seth Rogen and none of the other cast members. It's a really fun piece of its time. Its biggest problem was debuting 2 weeks after September 11th, when people were just not quite ready to laugh at a wacky college dorm comedy, and it kind of tanked really quickly. This was also at a time period where they were trying to do serialized television, but the networks weren't up to that. So this was aired all types of out of order at the time that it ran. So you'd have characters in a relationship with someone that you haven't even met, and then like 4 episodes later, you'd see the episode where they met each other. Like, it was just handled terribly. But the basic premise of the show is that you have Stephen Karp, your main character, who is starting his freshman year of college. He's trying to reinvent himself. He's no longer the dork that he was in high school. He's going to try to be a brand new person in college. And it's about his life with his dorm mates while he's also going through his parents' divorce. And by the time the show was canceled, they had barely gotten through fall semester. I just feel like you've got so much stuff to work with there, right? Like dealing with the first holidays with a divorced parent. Like, I just imagine that there's this storyline where Steven goes back home, but home doesn't feel quite right. So he ends up just going back to his dorm and spending Christmas alone in his dorm. Maybe he wishes that he was never born. You do, you know, we've talked about it before, but you do like the It's a Wonderful Life or the Christmas Carol type storyline where he sees like, no, like it's, yeah, this is tough, but change is important. And like, look at how far you've grown this semester. And, you know, you can do something fun and silly, but like educational, inspirational, I guess is the better word. There was no educational happening in Undeclared, but like, I just think that there was a lot that could have happened if they had gotten more episodes and more seasons to do anything with it.
So did it only last 11 episodes, or did it last?
They shot 17, but canceled it around 11 epides airing, I believe.
Because for some reason I felt like it lasted longer. Like, I remember watching this show and loving it, and okay, wow. That I thought for sure at least it lasted 2 seasons, but I guess I was wrong on that. So
yeah, no, it did not even complete its first season before Fox pulled it. So
what would you have? So you an episode where he's going back and I know because in the pilot his parents divorce, his dad hangs out with him at college, and so it's basically him trying to figure out where he goes home for Christmas.
What does home for Christmas look like for him now? And, you know, maybe he decides that home for Christmas for him is back at his dorm, not dealing with the drama of his family for a little bit.
I think that makes a very good episode. I probably would have loved to have seen that. Especially, I mean, if his girlfriend is with him, because you know she was great.
Yep, starting a new holiday tradition, like I that's like a big element too for me, and I think that it would have been a great way to tackle it. Is like, I think most people, I would imagine that all of us as people who host Christmas podcasts have our traditions, have our things that are like very specific to you. And then when your life changes, maybe you are in a relationship with a new person or something, like your traditions evolve, because like when you're a single person, you pretty much just do exactly what your family does every year for Christmas, and you have those traditions. But now there's a second person who might also have a whole bunch of family traditions, and finding a way to like hit that compromise of like checking off those. I mean, Boy Meets World has a phenomenal Christmas episode tackling this exact same topic, but like doing that on a college dorm, I think could be really, really interesting.
Yeah. Are you talking about Topanga Christmas?
Boy, am I talking about Topanga Christmas. Never has Topanga been more annoying than the Topanga Christmas episode.
It's very funny that you bring that up, because the podcast where they rewatch the show with the cast, they talked, that episode came out today, and I was listening to it this morning, of them talking about A Very Topanga Christmas and how much they didn't care for it. And I'm like, how are you kidding me? It's such a great episode. It's such a great, it's a great Christmas episode. I guess maybe
it does a lot of character assassination to Topanga in that episode, because she is like like that isn't any version of Topanga that you've seen up until that point or after that point. It was just like, what if Topanga is the most annoying Christmas person in the world that doesn't care about anyone else's traditions? And it's like, that doesn't check any boxes of like the most empathetic character on the show.
That's fair. So, so we got a couple comments. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn the comments on my side here, but Christopher Pagura says, I like Batman. And Mr. Awesome says, an I Dream of Jeannie Christmas episode would have been good. That when I was doing some research trying to figure out, what other shows never had a Christmas episode, I Dream of Jeannie was like all over the internet. And I'm like, that's one show I didn't really follow all that much, but apparently people were upset they didn't have a Christmas episode. So,
and I mean, again,
probably
having
because
never
that
watched
show
I
got a
Dream
lot
of
of-
Jeannie, why wouldn't that not have a Christmas episode?
Robert, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was going to say that even though a lot of the old sitcom shows did get a holiday special, I don't know why I Dream of Jeannie didn't.
Yeah,
So
it seems like that writes itself. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you do an episode, you literally do an episode of like what happens when you get everything you ever wanted. And like Christmas is less special because Jeannie just makes every single Christmas wish come true, and then it's like less special. Like,
okay, so my first choice is one of my favorite television shows of all time, Knight Rider. This was a show I grew up on. I watched this show religiously as a kid. I still, honestly, I'll admit it here. A couple of years ago, somebody was selling a replica of Kit. I went and looked at it because I almost wanted to buy it. My wife told me I was going through my midlife crisis. Needless to say, I didn't buy it. But one day I'm going to own it. So I wrote a synopsis. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. So I wrote a synopsis for each one. Let me read you guys my synopsis of what I think a Knight Rider Christmas episode would have been about. So Michael and Kit have to investigate a series of bank robberies dressed by men dressed as Santa Claus. The hot bank teller who saw one of the robbers' faces stays close to Michael so he can protect her, of course. Meanwhile, Kit is trying to figure out what he can get Michael for Christmas, and he asks Devin and Bonnie for a whole bunch of ideas because he doesn't know what Michael should get for Christmas. Turns out the robbers are the bank cleaning crew. And so when Michael discovers this, a chase happens. All the bank robbers attempt to escape in a jet-powered sleigh because we have to have a unique car for them to drive. And then Kit performs a turbo boost over the sleigh as Michael gets to a fist fight, arrests the robbers. And in the end, Kit figures out that the best gift he can give Michael is to tint his windows as he makes out with the bank teller and kisses her at the end. Knight Rider, right there. He gets the girl. They do a jump. In the 80s, it was very custom to have your bank robbers dressed as Santa. So took care of everything for me. What do you think?
All right. I'm going to be honest. That just sounds awesome.
yeah, I'm on board.
All right. I should have been a Knight Rider writer back in the 80s. I mean, he had to get the girl. He got the girl every week, and it's always the person he has to protect. She's always vulnerable, and he takes advantage of that, essentially. So that's the Michael Knight way.
Well, still, you didn't answer one question. What is Kit going to get for Christmas?
Well, Kit doesn't need anything.
Rims. Spinner rims.
So Christmas Cousin Chad, you almost bought a replica of Kit. Just how much do you make off of this channel? Not enough to buy a Kit replica, I can tell you that right now, which is one of the reasons why I didn't buy this thing. So what do you guys think of Knight Rider? Did you guys watch that show when it was on? Or
I did see a little bit of it. I might have been a little too late to get into it. It wasn't until, ironically, college where we actually got shown some more clips that I actually did see a little more of Knight Rider. And even though I've been due to go back and rewatch that show, I still haven't yet. It's on my queue to watch that show. But it is something that I am well aware of. I've seen enough of it to know that this is totally my thing. So Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch it soon.
I always forget too that I grew up with this show, but maybe you guys didn't because you're younger than me or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was a 10 o'clock, usually 9 and 10 o'clock show that my parents let me watch. It was the one thing that I was allowed to watch because I loved this show so much. So.
Yeah. If anything, I might have learned more from the Simpsons on Knight Rider.
Yeah, I feel like most of my Knight Rider knowledge is based on every show of the 90s doing a parody episode of Knight Rider.
That's
but
fair.
it does have a banger theme song. That is
yes.
That was only made better when Busta Rhymes remixed it and rapped over top of it.
Oh my God. I had no idea that existed. Really?
Yeah. Turn It Up, Fire It Up is just him rapping over the Knight Rider theme, and it's awesome.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. I don't know if I can handle that. All right, Robert, your next episode for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the cartoon series.
Okay, so we actually have a non-Disney, non-Nickelodeon one that I did see because I love the original Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's still one of my favorite movies to this day. And the fact that the animated series actually did bring back Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, and George Carlin really did showcase how much the original crew did want to be a part of this. And if anything, it's definitely much more of an adventure of the week where they continue just going on more time-traveling adventures. Usually meeting a historical figure, not always, but it always had the guys traveling through time, and they were still just as airheaded as they were in the series. Like, there's an episode where they go back to England at around the 1600s to go catch an original play of Romeo and Juliet, but they accidentally try to pay with their own American cash, and they get thrown in jail, being accused of being crooks. But yeah, even though the Back to the Future cartoon itself got a Christmas episode that I covered last December, I'm actually surprised that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures never got around to doing their own holiday special, even though there's a lot you can do with time travel. So, and even though there is a Bill and Ted comic that does have them doing a Christmas story, that I'm doing a completely different one here, where in my scenario, it would open up with Ted's dad and a whole bunch of other police officers getting ready to pull off their annual holiday policeman's banquet. And once again, Ted asks if the Wild Stallions can play, but the dad again says, no, no, no. And that's when Bill and Ted realize just how grumpy Ted's dad happens to be around Christmas. So they decide to time travel to back when he was a little kid or so, just to see his dad actually happy for once around the holidays. And, well, they try to make him feel better by kidnapping a Howdy Doody type figure and bring it back to the modern day, only to find out that their dad's actually now terrified of this guy. And, they decide to end up taking him back to do some more time traveling, and it's much more complicated than that. And that's when they realize that it really has to do more with the fact that Ted's grandparents, his father's parents may have died around that time, and that's where it kind of stems, and that's where they essentially get the understanding. Maybe they bring Ted's dad with him, and he starts to embrace the holidays more, and then by the end, they let the Wild Stallions play the policeman's banquet, no matter how terrible they are.
That's kind of deep for a Bill and Ted cartoon. I don't know. I mean, I like it.
Which I know about a little deep here.
Yeah, it's. What about if they went back in time and met Saint Nicholas? That could. Been
Saint Nicholas and Mira. Yeah, that's another scenario that I did briefly consider. I was just wondering exactly what it would do. I think another idea that I did have also had something like that, where they bring it back and it becomes like another Miracle on 34th Street type thing, where he starts going into the shopping malls and he's like, I don't really like how Christmas has become.
The commercialism of Christmas.
Yeah. I was just a little worried that with bringing in St. Nicholas and Mira, that would get into the more religious side of Christmas. And I know that can be a bit of a no-no factor with shows back then.
I just want to throw back that there was such a beautiful time in the mid to late 80s into the mid 90s where literally any live action movie had the potential to become a popular Saturday morning cartoon series. Like, it's such a, like, Rambo had one.
Yes.
Like the Toxic Crusaders, which is based on like a basically NC-17 level horror comedy. Like,
Yeah.
it was just a magical time in America.
Don't forget RoboCop. You know, probably one of the worst movies for kids to see became a cartoon for them to enjoy.
Or is
And
it
I
one
feel
of
like
the best movies the kids could see?
Well,
Yeah. There was literally a point where there were 3 cartoons based on 3 Jim Carrey movies all airing simultaneously on television. Like, it was a wild time.
so this was actually, I don't think I ever watched this show.
I watched this religiously on Saturday mornings as a kid. This and the Back to the Future cartoon series.
See, I watched Back to the Future, but I don't know if I ever watched this one. And maybe I might have, and I was blocking it out. So when Robert suggested it, and he told me that the original cast voiced it, I was like, oh, well, all right, that's cool. So I went back and I watched a couple episodes, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm kind of like, well, maybe I need to look into this a little bit more and watch some of the other episodes. I mean, the great thing is they're on YouTube, so they're easy to find. I don't know if they're all up there, but I did watch 1 or 2 episodes, and yeah, I mean, it was really cool to hear, you know, the original cast voice these characters. It was a little absurd cartoon story wise, but I mean, they went to hell in the second one, so I guess it's I don't really know if you could really say it's that absurd, I guess, if you think about it. So, but this was a good choice.
Yeah, I will warn you, though, that only the first season the original cast returns. For some reason, in season 2, everybody gets replaced, and there's also an animation downgrade.
Well, listen, Alex Winter had a big career going on at that point in time.
Yeah, he had to go make Freaked.
Oh, one of the best movies of all time. Now he's just a very prolific documentary filmmaker. So good for him.
Cool. All right, Matt, Gravity Falls.
All right. So this was what I was implying earlier when I said, like, now you're getting these cartoons where you kind of have to watch Gravity Falls in order of its release, because it is this. I mean, the last 10 episodes are an extended to be continued serialized wrap up of the series. But for those of you who have never seen Gravity Falls tells the story of Dipper and Mabel, who go to visit their great uncle Stan at the Shriek Shack, and find out that basically every type of conspiracy and cryptozoological creature lives in this weird town of Gravity Falls, and they try to dive into the mystery of why that is the case. But it all takes place over a summer, so that's why we don't get a Christmas episode, although it is worth noting that they do have an episode called Summerween, where the town just has Halloween in the middle of the summer to cash in on candy sales. But I thought that, like, there's something you could do here. The main villain of the show is a character named Bill Cipher. He is a triangle. He's basically the Illuminati symbol with a top hat on, who controls all of the weirdness in Gravity Falls. He's the main villain. So my idea was that Dipper and Mabel are coming back to Gravity Falls for the holidays. Unfortunately, they are frozen out of the shack due to the door being frozen shut. So the assistant, Seuss, gets a blowtorch to try to melt the snow around the door and tells the kids to play in the snow in the meantime. While playing in the snow, they create a snowman. But unbeknownst to them, Bill Cipher's top hat is still in Gravity Falls. And when it lands on the head of the snowman, it brings the snowman to life, a la Frosty the Snowman logic, and starts creating all types of Jack Frost horror movie level mayhem with snow, things like firing, icicles at the kids and trying to get vengeance on the kids. And it's only when Seuss and his blowtorch show up that he is able to save the day by simply melting the snowman.
I love it.
What a great stupid way to kill the snowman. I actually loved how you off him out, just basically melting him.
So this was a show I had never. Yeah, Go ahead.
Like put a line in there like, no, fire, my only weakness. Like something so dumb.
So this is a show I'd never seen. I actually watched the first episode today just so I can kind of get a sense of what it was. So I really don't know any of the characters, but judging from what I saw in the first episode, that feels right about right, you know? So
Yep.
yeah, I really,
the first episode where Mabel's dating what she thinks is a hot vampire guy and turns out to be just a bunch of gnomes stacked up on top of each other
and then
under a trench coat.
and then like one of them's like, I don't even know who you are, like to the one on the foot or whatever. And I was just like, what is going on? I love it. I really did. I actually mentioned to my kid, I said, have you ever watched Gravity Falls? And she goes, yeah, I watch it. I've watched a few episodes. I love it. And I said, oh, yeah. She goes, well, you want to watch it with me? I'm like, yes, I do.
And this is the perfect, right before Halloween is like the perfect season to dive into it. But it is really interesting in the sense of the creator of the show, Alex Hirsch, like they got 2 seasons and he was like, that's all I wanted. Like, he's like, I knew what the story was that I wanted to tell and I didn't want to stretch it out. I didn't want to like do that thing that shows do where they go 8 seasons and then you're like never satisfied with the ending because they've been like stretching it out too long. So it's like 40 episodes and it's such a quick watch. It flies by. It's great for kids, but it's filled with stuff that like the parents and adults will just adore watching. So I discovered it earlier this year and already watched it 3 times because it's just such an easy background show. Oh, especially now that like my girlfriend and her kids live here and they like it. It's just like perfect. Like, oh, you want something to watch? Let's just start Gravity Falls from the beginning again.
Yeah,
That's
I actually
awesome.
do consider Gravity Falls one of the best series that Disney has ever put together. I mean, even though Alex Hirsch, of course, put it together. But what's funny is that even though this definitely goes in a slightly darker route, especially once we get to the Bill Cipher episodes, and I mean, even in the last episode when we had that final confrontation, and Bill Cipher just flat out tells the kids, "Maybe I'll just kill her for the fun of it."
Yeah,
And
like
he
it
just goes
gets dark.
Yeah. But yet it still remains consistently funny. And I mean, I've seen the whole series twice and I still find it hilarious. And yet it's actually something I can keep on as background because I feel myself a little too invested to just keep it on as a background thing. I actually have to watch it each time it's on.
Yeah, if you've never seen it, it's definitely a high recommend from me to watch Gravity Falls.
Well, I'm going to have to start watching it now that my kid wants to watch it with me. It's something we can watch together, so I'm kind of curious about it. So I'll let you know. I'll let you guys know what I think after I watch the series. So
Please do.
All right. So I wanted to come up with one kid's show. This is Nickelodeon at its finest. This is the show that I watched religiously. The fact that we only got 2 seasons out of the show is still just sad. But it is by far the greatest Nickelodeon show ever made. That's my opinion. Now, this is me growing up in the 80s and 90s. So, Salute Your Shorts takes place during the summer. So, how do we make a Christmas episode? So, I wrote a synopsis. It's the Christmas in July celebration at Camp Anawana, and the campers are getting ready to participate in the Christmas Camp Olympics, a series of Christmas-themed activities. So, Ugg is trying to convince Donkey Lips he should play Santa, and he only believes that he's being asked because he's fat, because honestly, that's the reason, and of course, the show would tell us that. Meanwhile, Budnick is visited by 3 ghosts. Dina as the ghost of Christmas past, Zizi as the ghost of Christmas present, and Telly as the ghost of yet to come. And they will show him that if he doesn't change his ways on how he treats the other campers, that eventually he will get an awful waffle.
All right. Before we even dive into how good this is, I have to tell you something that's going to kind of blow your mind. About 15 years ago, I used to book like local shows in the Philadelphia suburbs. Mm-hmm. And Michael Ray Bauer, who played Donkey Lips, came to one of our shows and gave my little brother an awful waffle in the middle of the show as like an intermission bit. So I now know how an awful waffle is performed because I don't think they ever show it on screen. It's always like off screen.
Yeah.
So if you're ever curious, it's that you literally press a tennis racket hard enough against someone's chest that it leaves a waffle mark on it, and then you pour syrup on it.
Yeah, I thought that was obvious. We got a comment here. Carly goes, salute your shorts. So there's obviously someone who watched Nickelodeon in the 90s. I also have a past with the Salute Your Shorts cast. I used to run a toy website with my college friends called MillionairePlayboy.com. And we used to do interviews with all sorts of celebrities that would respond back to us, just to have them. I did a 3-part series with Trevor Eister, who played Sponge Harris, and we had, it's a great you have to read it. This was back in the early 2000s before videos and stuff were online. But yeah, he gave me all sorts of information about the show, about what it was like to film, what he misses about it, all that kind of stuff. It was such a great thing. There was reunion shows that happened in California like a couple years ago that I so wanted to be at, but just didn't get there. It's one of my favorite shows. But what do you guys think of the Christmas episode? I mean, you have to have a Christmas Carol retelling at some point in one of these speculations that we're doing.
I mean, I will say that your premise of giving Budnick his own Christmas Carol, it's very similar to the Camp Candy Christmas episode that was done that Jerry and I had covered. That also had a Christmas in July special, and one of the kids is going through that. Even though I do like the way it was done here, though, it definitely feels like it's just perfect that if you don't change your ways, you'll get an awful waffle, which is
and that's
totally
the thing.
Right.
You can you imagine he's like looking at the Christmas future, which of course is really just like next year. I don't know, and because he was treating them so badly, maybe the kids gang up on him and all hold him down, and they give him an awful waffle, and he has to go, and he's screaming, no, just like they do in all of the Christmas Carol retellings. And he's like, I want to live. And of course, he plays nice to all of them. Maybe he sits on Donkey Lips' lap and doesn't insult him. It needed to happen.
I love it so much. One of the things that makes me really sad, I'm not sure if you can see it, but behind me is just like a small portion of my physical DVD collection. Mm-hmm. And at one point they had put out like 2 seasons of Pete and Pete and 1 season of Clarissa Explains It All on DVD. And next that they were supposed to release was Salute Your Shorts on DVD. And then at the 0 hour, they just like cut it. They were just like, we're not going to put it out on DVD. Man, I wish that show was on DVD with some commentary tracks or something. Because you're right, it is one of the top tier Nickelodeon shows. And I do have to just show one other thing. The year I was UGG for Halloween.
That's cool.
I've been threatening to cosplay as Zeke the plumber. I think that would be the greatest. I would love to see if anybody would recognize me. I've not been able to find a mask that's quite right yet, but as soon as I do, it's just a plunger and some overalls and cut the nose off the mask.
It seems like such a hot costume to wear.
Yeah. My brothers and I used to watch this show, and I think my first time I ever watched a romance episode of something where I felt moved was when Budnick and Dina fall in love. Like that episode where they date. Like that was great. That was so great. And I know it's most people would be like, really? But that was probably
a magic time of Nickelodeon.
Yeah. So all right. So Salute Your Shorts. Great show. I think the cast should redo that episode. I know we've lost a guy who played Ugly, but the rest of the campers are still there. Go back to the camp, redo that, remake that episode. I'll write the script. I'll make this happen. So, all righty. So, Robert, your final pick. And a show that I did
other-
watch. Oh, go ahead.
The other option for best Nickelodeon show of all time.
This is a show I also watch, but yeah, Salute Your Shirts is better, but I will give you this, Robert. This was a good choice.
Yeah, I mean, as you were saying, this is actually one of my personal picks for the best Nickelodeon show because, I mean, I love a good anthology. You could say everything you want about how great The Twilight Zone is, which it is, as long with Tales from the Crypt and such, but Are You Afraid of the Dark really got me into that whole like spooky anthology series, and it also really made me want to become a writer myself because I really liked a lot of the stories that they put on there. I mean, yeah, even though there are some that are a little cheesier now than I realized or so, but it still does get under my skin thinking that there's a good amount of episodes that do not end up with a happy ending.
Yeah, so I literally last summer I was asked to moderate a panel with the creator of Are You Afraid of the Dark at a convention, and I found out this factoid that I love sharing with people. He wrote every single episode of that show by himself because they didn't give him enough money for a writing staff. So he's like they would essentially give me like $2,000 for a writing staff, so I would just have an open call every year for people to pitch me ideas, and I would give them like $150 for their idea and then write the script myself for every single episode of the show. So like the fact that it's coming from this one guy's brain, I think is why I like the show so much, is it has that consistency that you don't get from so many other anthology shows. Because so many other anthology shows, it's like just a guest director and guest writer for that particular week. And like, that's when you get like episodes that don't feel like it fits in with the other. Are You Afraid of the Dark is something super special in that way. And I cannot wait to hear how you do a Christmas episode of this because again, shocking that there isn't one.
Okay, so you ready to hear it? So
yes,
I'm ready.
Okay, so it's close to Christmas. The Midnight Society has gathered at a house to have a little party until they decide to dim the lights and place their chairs in front of the fireplace where I haven't decided which one was going to do it, but they start talking about how they grew up just worried about the possibility of Santa not coming into their house, but then brings up how there's actually more to that. So that's when they essentially grab the desk and pretty much say, what was that line? Oh, sorry. Submitted for the approval of Midnight Society. I call this story, boom, The Tale of the Yule Lads. And essentially, we focus on two twin boys, one skinny, one fat. They both love pulling pranks. They're both troublemakers, even though they have an overactive imagination. They're just yearning to get out of the school. And then they pull a prank that ends up getting them in huge trouble. They get picked up by their mom, who had also just picked up their Icelandic grandmother, who essentially warns them that bad, naughty little boys will not get a visit from Santa. They're going to get a visit from the Yule Lads. And that's when she starts telling them about how the Yule Lads are these little elvish men that come and cause trouble, and the worst offenders will get taken and eaten by their mother, a ghoulish woman named Grilla, which at first the kids are like intrigued, but they're like, oh, that's just something that they made up. So as they're essentially picking up a Christmas tree, they decide to pull yet another stunt on a neighbor of theirs that they do not like, and yet I guess that was the move that went too far, because as they both are in their rooms that later that night, they suddenly find that everything is empty. The house is just completely empty except for those two. And there's like a raging snowstorm on the outside, and the power goes out, and they're a little on edge. And then they start hearing noises, and then all of a sudden, down the chimney comes 13 of the Yule Lads, which in my case would be played all by little people. So they would essentially be causing a lot of trouble, and yet the kids are trying to use their pranks to get back at them, all Home Alone style, but they eventually get captured. They get hoisted outside, where they get led out to this like humongous like ogre of a lady, Grilla, who's essentially getting ready to prepare them for a Christmas stew, until the kids wake up, realizing it was all a nightmare. And it's like Christmas Eve, and they're ready to be good little boys, up until they suddenly see that their grandmother just has a weird specific look that's oddly similar to Gorilla's. So there might be a family connection there, maybe not. So it was more of a just behave around the holidays. Otherwise, things may not be so nice later on.
I love that. I think what I like about it is that it gives me elements of the movie Krampus, but like my problem that I've always had with Krampus is that it can't decide if it's an R-rated movie or a children's movie, and it like never feels like it satisfies either. But knowing that this is going to be an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, it would lean properly into that like kind of a little bit scarier than normal kids content that like can work really well, as we've seen if done properly. So like, oh, that sounds so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, it is. I did too. I think, with this show, which lends itself to a Christmas episode, because it could be about it. Each week was about something different, and it was not a set cast, and it was other than the kids who would just tell the story each week. It was a different story every week, and it was like the fact that they didn't do a Christmas episode. And how long did this show last?
It
was
for like
10 seasons.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, it was like a long time. So that's a lot of episodes. But I guess if you're only getting $2,000 to come up with ideas, someone just didn't come up with a Christmas idea for him.
You know what, though? I'm looking at... I think a big portion of it, as I'm looking at it, only one season, as far as I can see, went past November. They really tried to slot that show as a summer into Halloween series. So that's probably the only reason this didn't happen, but even then you could still do a Christmas special, like a one-off. Like,
yeah.
And even then, I mean, if the Twilight Zone got a Christmas episode and Tales from the Crypt got a Christmas episode, then yeah, absolutely, Are You Afraid of the Dark could have had a Christmas episode.
Yeah.
So, hey, we got Dwayne from Tizzle Tunes. Great episode. Keep up the good work. So, thanks, Dwayne. You keep up the good work too. I message you guys read it. My message on your Tizzle Tune podcast about your heavy metal episode. I loved that episode. Do more metal on the Tinsel Tunes, but sounds like not everybody was on board with that, but I loved it. So, anyways, yeah, Afraid of Your Dark, I think it's a great choice. Great, leaves it open to do that. Why they didn't do that, maybe we can ask we could message the creator and ask him, and maybe he just doesn't want.
I had pitched him, and I was kind of bummed because he didn't seem into the idea. He was like, I don't think anyone would care. I told him that he should have his own podcast where he just goes episode by episode and breaks down the like behind the scenes story of crafting it and everything. He's like, no one cares about that old crap.
People care about that old crap. I mean,
exactly.
You need to push him on that a little harder. I think he would. If you push him hard enough, he'll do it, and he'll get himself a brand new show, and he'll have you to thank for that.
Yes, exactly. That's the goal. All right,
so, Matt, Daria.
My second favorite show behind Scrubs. I need to start off with clarifying that there is like sort of technically maybe you could count it as a Christmas episode of Daria. They did an episode that is widely considered the worst episode of the show called Depth Takes a Holiday. And the concept of the show was that MTV was getting on them that they had no holiday episodes. So they broke the entire reality of Daria. Daria is a show that is very, I think, despite being an animated series, very based in the real world with real characters, with real actions and real consequences. And then you get this episode where Cupid and a leprechaun show up and inform Daria that they're from the land of holiday. At Christmas, Halloween, and Guy Fawkes Day have escaped to start an industrial band with Jane's brother Trent. And they have to convince them to go back to Holiday Land. And that's the entire episode. And then at the very end, Daria says, this was the greatest Halloween, Christmas, Guy Fawkes Day, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day ever. And they like handed that to MTV and they're like, there, air that on whatever holiday you choose. So I wanted to give Daria like the appropriate holiday episode. And I think that the only proper way would be that it would be about Daria getting frustrated about the commercialization of Christmas, and her family is quick to call her a Scrooge. She goes to bed and she dreams her own version of the Christmas Carol. Quinn would obviously be her sister Quinn would be the ghost of Christmas present. Jane would be the ghost of Christmas present. Quinn would be the ghost of Christmas past. Jane, the ghost of Christmas present. Trent would be the ghost of Christmas future. The only big difference in all of this is that when Daria wakes up in the morning, she's completely unfazed, still decides to skip Christmas with her family and go to Jane's house so that she can watch the Sick Sad World Christmas special. So that's my pitch for what they could have done. It's kind of like the anti-Christmas special, which fits with Daria's whole mood. Kind of being like Charlie Brown's Christmas meets the Beavis and Butthead Do Christmas special in this very like a Christmas special for the people who hate Christmas to a certain extent. So I just think it was a missed opportunity for such an insightful show and such a fantastic character to never tackle something as big as Christmas. Because there is so much as it's a holiday that we love, there's a lot that you can complain about with the holiday too from a human level. And I think that's what Daria was so good at calling out, was stuff like over commercialization and like inauthenticity. So I don't know, just felt like a missed opportunity, but I'm glad to make Carly's day by
Carly's been
Daria.
waiting. She's been waiting for us to talk about Daria. So I haven't seen Daria in a long time, and really I think I only knew her really from Beavis and Butthead because greatest cartoon ever made was Beavis and Butthead, my opinion. But did Daria break the fourth wall a lot by like that kind of thing?
That's why that Death Takes a Holiday episode is so freaking weird. Like it makes no sense for it to be there beyond just kind of being a middle finger to MTV trying to tell them what type of episode they needed to make.
Because for me, that sounds amazing. Like just to say, like MTV, like there's a voice of MTV that says, we are waiting for this episode, Christmas episode. Please make this episode for us. And it's like, and then of course, she says something sarcastically, to the screen or whatever. That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
that's the only way to do it. You couldn't do a Daria learns a lesson Christmas episode. It just wouldn't be like and also because like Daria never really needs to learn a lesson. Daria's in the right 99.9% of the time on that show. So I don't know. Just I thought it was time for a snarky Christmas special now that we've talked about so many more classic optimistic ones.
So, all right. So finally,
speaking of snark.
So one of my favorite shows of all time is Breaking Bad. And they didn't have a Christmas episode. They really didn't have a lot of episodes, but the whole series takes place over the course of basically a year, maybe two. I think it's a year. And then when he breaks away, it's like his 55th birthday or something like that. I don't know if you guys watch Breaking Bad, but I love this show. I had to try to come up with a synopsis for this, so I was trying to figure out where this episode would lie, because there's like 6 seasons of Breaking Bad, or 5 seasons, and I think it's when they're working for Gus Fring. So at Christmas, Walter and Jesse are making them. Let me start again. At Christmas, Walter and Jesse are making meth for Gus Fring, and Walter is upset because Gus expects a delivery of meth on Christmas Day. So, at this point, this is where Walter started complaining about things to Mike. He's arguing with Mike that it's not right. He has a family, and this is where Gus Fring is probably starting to get a little annoyed with Walter White. Meanwhile, I think Jesse gives Walter White a Christmas gift that Walter is agitated by, because this happens a few times in the series. He gives him gifts, and slowly you could see Walter just kind of like, he gets appreciative of it, and then he gets really mad about it. So I don't know what that gift is. I couldn't figure out a good synopsis for that. That's why the Breaking Bad writers are better at this than I am. But anyways, on Christmas Eve, Walter is quickly trying to finish up cooking the meth and looking for a good lie to tell Skyler when he gets home on Christmas. So I was trying to figure out where that Christmas episode could lie. It wouldn't be necessarily about Christmas. It would take place during the holiday. I think that's the best way Breaking Bad would have done that. But yeah, cooking meth, Christmas. What better way to combine those two together?
I mean, I'll give you this, that you're definitely bold for trying to come up with a Christmas episode for Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the show, or you familiar with it?
What's funny is that even though I've seen the entirety and love Better Call Saul, I actually have yet to watch Breaking Bad, even though I get told all the time, including my fiance, you gotta watch this show. And again, it's another one that's on my to-watch list.
Okay, yeah. You after you're done here, go watch the first episode, and then when you're done, 5 seasons later, thank me, because you need to watch it.
Breaking Bad is definitely one of those shows that I watched once. There are like a handful of shows where I completely understand why they're great, and I will go up for bat and say, yeah, that's a masterpiece of a show. But I have become such a person who's just adverse to like narcissism. It is definitely it's a very nihilistic show to a certain extent. So I think it's a masterpiece that I never want to rewatch because I just don't like how it makes me feel. It's like there's a lot of shows like that and a lot of movies. Like if you ask me what the best horror movie of the last 10 years was, I'd say it's Hereditary, but I never want to watch it again. Like there's just I've learned to protect how things make me emotionally feel. So like Breaking Bad is, you're right. It is arguably the best show of the last like 15 to 20 years. I just never want to watch it again because it stresses me out way too much and like affects my my entire day whenever I watch it.
That's fair. But of course, if it was a Christmas episode, at least it would give you maybe some holiday feels.
Let me ask a crazy question because I've noticed that none of us, except for the very first one with DuckTales, would the real Santa Claus show up on the Breaking Bad Christmas special?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Although I could easily see one of the Jesse's friends, the dealers, like dressing up as Santa to give out the meth because he feels like this is like he's like, yo man, I'm just gonna give out I'm just gonna deliver the meth like a Santa Claus, and Jesse's just like rolls his eyes or something. Like I could see something like that. That could be fun. Like I said, I the Knight Rider one, the Salute Your Shorts synopsis too, those two that I wrote, those came to me like that because I could easily come up with a scenario. But when I came up with Breaking Bad, I was like, this is a hard one. This is going to be a hard one, but I had to do it. I had to figure out a way to do it. And I figure that, the thing with Walter White complaining to Gus Fring all the time about how he has to do this or has to do that, and he can't do this because of his family and stuff, it just lent itself to that. And, do I want to see that episode? Probably not. I think I think they were wise to stay away from Christmas. But it was. I thought I would take it on as a challenge.
Let me ask one other question. Would you, in your vision, right? Because I feel like 99% of the Breaking Bad episodes end on a real like, oh no, more bad things are going to happen kind of note, right? Like that's how they keep you hooked. Because it's a Christmas episode, do you like break that for this particular episode and not like end on a happy note, but at least kind of end on as neutral of a note as a Breaking Bad episode could end on?
I think I would have give it that to Walter, because even though he's an awful human being, I think in my episode he would have gotten home in time. He wouldn't had to lie to Skylar. Skylar is in a good mood for the holidays because it's their daughter's first Christmas. So maybe he's at peace a little bit. He finished his meth cook in time, and he didn't have to lie to her. So that could have been a good way to handle that.
Would that have been? Would that still be a little too off tone, or do you think it still would have worked out just fine?
It's probably. I'm sure if a writer of Breaking Bad heard me talking about this, they said that's an awful way to do that or whatever. I mean, I'm not, I am not. Maybe I could have written for a Nickelodeon show or an NBC show as crazy as Knight Rider, but I actually wouldn't have been able to write it. I just come up with ideas. Give me $150. Here's my idea.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, guys, this was a lot of fun. I'm sure there's more shows that we saw that could be easily, and maybe we'll do a part 2 of this one day when we think about some other shows that we could have discussed or could have had a Christmas episode that didn't, because I'm sure there's more of them out there. But I want to thank you guys. But why don't you guys tell me a little about your shows? Tell everybody about it. What's coming up? What do you got coming up? Because, this is September. This is the burn months. We are only less than 100 days till Christmas. And I know all three of us are like, well, how the hell are we going to get all this content out before December 25th? Because after that, no one cares. So, Robert?
Okay, well, all right. So I'm the host of Behind the Bells, which is a podcast show that takes classic Christmas movies and TV specials and sort of breaks down the history of who came up with the idea, how it was all produced, how it eventually got released, and how it was received at that time. And currently, I'm in the middle of finishing up doing my part 1 and my part 2 episodes on Frosty the Snowman, which the first half sort of covers into how the song was written, while the second half is going to cover how the whole animated special was made, how they casted some of the other parts, like how they got Jackie Vernon in as Frosty the Snowman, even though there's honestly not a lot to that. But there's still a lot of an interesting factor to that, considering that the same studio that drew Frosty the Snowman in Japan had also drawn for Astro Boy and a whole bunch of other animes. But otherwise, I've also got some upcoming episodes. I got another Nickelodeon deep dive on Hey Arnold and that Christmas episode. I'm doing a couple of Almost Christmas beforehand, and then I've got at least another 2-parter that I'm hoping I'm going to get out in time for December, because I tend to have gaps because of all the research I do beforehand. But again, I usually like to make them as in-depth retrospectives as I can. So if you want to listen to Behind the Bells, you can find me on Apple Podcasts. You can find me on Spotify. You can find me on Google Podcasts that hasn't been shut down yet. Or if all else fails, you can also find all my material on YouTube.
Awesome. Cool. Matt?
Christmas 365. It's me and my buddy Dylan. We try to talk about Christmas all year round, every week. We get sidetracked a lot, and there's sometimes episodes where we're just like reviewing a new movie that came out under the guise of like, also there was this Christmas special tied to that movie like 20 years ago that we watched. We're gearing up for the holidays. Obviously, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. I'm very excited that we're talking about what I think is the best Simpsons Christmas special, which is Marge Be Not Proud, where Bart gets caught shoplifting. I'm really excited to tackle that particular episode. But the big thing I want to talk about is actually a thing I do every single December. On December 6th, over on my YouTube, Geekscape TV, part of the Geekscape network, we do a 24-hour-long holiday live stream every year to raise money for the Big Brothers Big Sisters of coastal and northern New Jersey. So feel free to tune in. Just get 24 hours of live music, sketch comedy, game shows, live podcasting, all of that stuff. Christmas 365 will be hosting a debate over if Die Hard is a Christmas movie or a movie that takes place at Christmas. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have some music trivia. We're going to have the Weird Al podcast is going to be debuting a game that we've discovered, a Weird Al Yankovic text-based RPG that one of our friends wrote when he was in elementary school in the 80s. And we're going to do a live playthrough of it because we were able to get it emulated into a way that we play. Just a bunch of fun, crazy stuff all day long. So come check it out, have some fun, support the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization, and check out Christmas 365 on any podcasting app.
Awesome. Well, and you guys just hit 200 episodes. So
yes, I guess I should have mentioned that. Yeah, this past week was 200 episodes. Awesome. We did our top 12 days of Christmas countdown.
Cool. And Robert, I've been waiting for your next episode. So Frosty the Snowman, I'm glad to hear that that's what it is. I can't wait to hear it. I've got a couple things in the fire here, obviously. Check out my latest video was the Home Alone 2 locations. I went to New York. I filmed all the locations. That was a lot of fun. Check out my Year in Christmas series. I just released 1985 last month. 84 is in the works right now. And so all those people watching the 85 one, 84 is coming. It just takes a long time to put together. And then I have a couple other things in the fire for Christmas. I don't want to announce everything because if I don't get to it and then, people are like, well, where is this at? But one of the episodes that I'm working on is I have a series called How Somebody Celebrates Christmas. I choose a pop culture character and I run through all the episodes of TV or the movies or something of these characters. I did the Harry Potter one. Now I am doing Gilmore Girls, how the Gilmore Girls almost celebrate Christmas, because after I got started on this episode, I realized they really don't have a lot of Christmas episodes. But
no, they almost infamously have zero.
But they do. There is elements of all of them. There's a little bit of each one. Seasons are more important in Gilmore Girls than the holidays really are. We're gonna count that. So that's gonna be coming up very soon. So thanks you guys for joining me. Be sure to check out their channels. Be sure to listen to them, download them, subscribe, as well as mine. If you're watching this without being a subscriber, that would be amazing if you would. And of course, this will also, audio version of this will be online, and the Christmas Summit podcast, anywhere you can find a podcast, I'm sure you'll be able to find it as well. So if you want to re-listen to us talk about all these shows, you can do that as well. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'm the Christmas Aficionado, and remember, stay off the naughty list.
Put down that smartphone and listen to me. I'm Matthew Milligan, professional musician and lifelong Weird Al fan. Each week, I'm joined by professional podcaster and close personal friend Matt Kelly to take a dive off the deep end into the vast career of pop culture icon Weird Al Yankovic on our show, Weird Algorithm. Along with some very special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we tackle every song, every television appearance, and every bit of sketch comedy Al has produced in chronological order, covering the good old days of My Bologna and Eat It, the fun zone of tacky and white and nerdy, and everything in between. As we go, we're ranking the songs, albums, and music videos in the hopes of creating the ultimate guide to a career bigger than the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. So the next time you're having one of those days, stuck in a traffic jam, wondering why does this always happen to me, just kick off your sneakers and stick around for a while, because we've got it all on Weird Algorithm, available wherever you get your podcasts. And now you know. Was that enough references?
We're here to entertain you. We'll sing your songs.
Hey there. Are you obsessed with things that happened before your time? Well, if you are, join me, the host of Before My Time, Kelsey Laurie, to discuss the wonders of the yesteryears that we weren't around to enjoy ourselves. You can find us on all podcast platforms.
Dixieland's a playing, soon you'll be swaying, so come on, sing along.
Put down that smartphone and listen to me. I'm Matthew Milligan, professional musician and lifelong Weird Al fan. Each week, I'm joined by professional podcaster and close personal friend Matt Kelly to take a dive off the deep end into the vast career of pop culture icon Weird Al Yankovic on our show, Weird Algorithm. Along with some very special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we tackle every song, every television appearance, and every bit of sketch comedy Al has produced in chronological order, covering the good old days of My Bologna and Eat It, the fun zone of tacky and white and nerdy, and everything in between. As we go, we're ranking the songs, albums, and music videos in the hopes of creating the ultimate guide to a career bigger than the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. So the next time you're having one of those days, stuck in a traffic jam, wondering why does this always happen to me, just kick off your sneakers and stick around for a while, because we've got it all on Weird Algorithm, available wherever you get your podcasts. And now you know. Was that enough references?
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.